So Brian has the presentation, and I'm supposed to be here to be backup for his presentation. But I can't quite get off the hook that easily because as I looked at what we're supposed to talk about, it turns out that I actually wrote almost everything that he was going on, so I guess I have to deal with that. Let's do one small item of business because I know it was on your agenda and you're interested in it. So with those who aren't aware, I currently serve as the convener of the Council of University Librarians. That's the chair role. And I know that you had a question about the distinguished step discussion. So we appreciate the input from LAUC on the task force. The Council of University Librarians discussed this at our February meeting. A number of questions emerged, and we're working on those questions, and we'll be discussing this again in the future. So that's where that is for those who are interested.
I think it has just 2 minutes or 3 minutes, just if anybody has a statement or a comment. They can make no questions, please. But I did wanted to make sure that if there was anybody who had something they need to say, just get it off your chest. Had an opportunity, and then we can let me move on with this presentation. So, is there anybody who had come with something prepared who wanted to share? No. Oh, I think the report and the feedback and the opportunity that LAUC had in terms of the working group, I appreciated, and the LAUC executive board members appreciated the opportunity, and look forward to whatever decision comes out of this. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is fairly complicated, and in some ways would actually have more impact if this were to come after the following presentation. So I want you to pay attention to me, and I want you to pay attention to Executive Vice Chancellor Lucas. We have a hard, difficult message to deliver to everybody, but the budget situation is real and is serious, and it is not something that any of us individually or as a group can deal with by working harder, cutting a few corners, tweaking what we do. This is a time for transformative change, for radical action. It is not optional. So I'm going to talk about several things to set this up. The first is the university librarians during this last year updated and formalized what we call priorities for collective initiatives. This is the major strategic planning for all of the libraries as a group, as a collective. And that spins on and incorporates a number of these other things that we're going to talk about ultimately about next-gen tech services. So you'll have to excuse me, but rather than try to recite this off the top of my head, I'm bound to miss something. I'm actually going to go back to the document to get some of the salient points. Why are we doing this? And what are the forces that are driving us to put our priorities together like we are? These are the things we are going to work on. Not the things we're interested in, not the things we'd like to talk about. This is what we are going to do. This gets done. If there's anything left over, you're welcome to work on other stuff. So here's the forces. One, the budget. You guys live in California, you're probably hooked up with the budget situation. I won't go into great detail there. We are also faced with never-ending escalating price increases for our information resources. It does not scale. It's not tenable. If we got another $100 million to spend on journals, I guarantee you that the journal publishers would be aware of that, and they would jack up their prices precisely $100 million. So something there has to change. We are overwhelmed by the newly created digital resources that need to be made available to our scholars and our students. We're confounded by the issues of preserving digital content. It's not unusual for a heavy-duty researcher to have a petabyte of information to store. Okay, well, we have UC3, we've got Merced, we've got the system-wide storage stuff, and quite frankly, it's the best deal in town. You know, what is it? It's a little over $1,000 a terabyte. Okay, so, professor, you have 1 petabyte of data that needs to be archived indefinitely, so 1 petabyte. Oh wait, that's $1 million. Oh wait, that's $1 million every year. You got that in your grant? You get it? This does not calculate. You can't get there from here. We have to deal with those things. We also are getting increasingly sophisticated and capable users. Our students, you know, the Google world. If we can't deliver, they're going to go get something that will work. So we're challenged by that. And it sounds like a by the way, but it's not a by the way. We're out of space to put books on shelves, to put bound journals on shelves. Now, we've got all kinds of little solutions to eke it out and work, make it a little better, and we can do some compact shelving and so forth. But ultimately, it does not add up. And the old answer of getting some capital improvements, building another building on campus, leasing storage somewhere else, no longer an option. On the system-wide task force that I'm on, one of our faculty members said, well, I don't care what it says. We need to go to the legislature. We need to go to the president and say, we have to have more buildings to put more books in. We said, we appreciate your thought, Professor. We're not taking that question forward because it is going nowhere, not going to happen. Doesn't matter if you think it's the right thing to do. So you see all these forces crashing into each other? This is not trivial. This is serious stuff. So quite some time ago, the university librarians began a process of figuring out not only how we would manage within our local campus budgets and environments, but also collectively what we might do to extend our range, to take some leadership here, to make some strategic moves to solve some of these problems so that we can stay on task, which is supporting the scholarly enterprise. So we've done work about refocusing collection management. We're looking at new technological opportunities. We're looking at this net together. And GTS is all about transforming operations. What are all these strategic things that we've got going on? Well, we have a lot of system-wide collective things underway, but they really boil down into some very, very focused points. The first one, the University of California Library Collection. I don't know how to speak in italics. You know? That's the title of that report, the University of California Library Collection, subtitle, Content for the 21st Century and Beyond. That is not a white paper to put in your file cabinet and forget about. Those are endorsed marching orders. We are going to do what it says in there. So if you're not familiar with that report, go back to it because that is the University of California Library. Note it says the University of California Library. It doesn't say libraries, it says library. So that's one. That's significant. That totally changes. Well, no, I'm going to take that back. I started to say that totally changes how we do our collections. No, that's incorrect. It draws focus on what we've been working toward for years and years, and it says this is where our priorities are. Second, next generation mail fill. That is not trivial. That is a huge strategic platform for us to move ahead. Very, very important. And we're getting down to the final hours of that. That is far more important than you can understand. So I'm not going to go into the technical discussions, but it opens us to the world of information. It opens us to delivering support for scholarship in ways that have never been there before. It opens us to new ways of doing business with our local processes. So it's very, very important. And then finally, next generation technical services. Oh, wait, that's what I was here to talk about. I'll try to get down to that. So, where are we within GTS? You can go read the reports. I'm not going to go through that again. But I want you to understand where the process is. We're not evaluating the reports and deciding what we might do. University librarians have explicitly said, of came to us, this set is a high priority, let's get it done. This set's a medium priority, or we need some more information, let's pursue that. And then we even took one set and said, great recommendations, no, we're not going to do those. Okay? Does everybody get that? This is a different kind of message than you're used to getting. We're through talking about it. We're not interested in anybody's opinion about one of the reports anymore. We are implementing. And this is really different, and we're not sure that this message is getting out there. So, where are we and what's happening? We discharged all the NGTS groups. When did I do it? The formal discharge was January 24th. But prior to that, we had sent the report to everybody about the final reports of what was happening. That was in mid-December. We sent it, we distributed it as widely as we could, besides posting it on the web. I can't tell you how long my mailing list was when I mailed that out. So if you haven't seen it, you need to get it hooked up, because I think it's really going around. But what happened? I think a lot of folks went, oh, okay. They did their reports, they're finished, thank you. They didn't pick up, upon reading this, that it says, this is what we are doing. That's important. Yeah. How are we doing it? SOPAC. We have an organizational structure with the Council of University Librarians. SOPAC as our operations group. The all-campus groups working with SOPAC. Yeah, let me take a little sideways step here, and I'll come back to this. At the same time we were doing all of this, over the last, I guess we started last July or August, a number of us have been working on this advisory structure. University librarians, SOPAC, all campus groups, next generation mail fill, next generation tech services. We made great upfront efforts to have all of those groups cross-communicate and pass information back and forth, but we still periodically tripped ourselves up because we had an executive team for Next Gen Mailville and an executive team for Next Gen Tech Services. That was not part of SOPAC. And so we inadvertently, in our effort to be nimble and strong-minded, also set ourselves up for some communication issues. So we did a complete review of the SOPAC UL's advisory structure, and at the end of the day, we realized, you know what? That's actually a pretty good structure. We should stop messing with these ad hoc things on the side. So we took all the things we've learned, and that's back in SOPAC's court right now, and they're working on fine-tuning the all-campus group structure, picking up some of the things we learned and fixing some things. So, now, back to NGTS. SOPAC is charged to implement NGTS as specified by the Council of University Librarians. So SOPAC is working on the structure for doing that in a way that tries to deal with some of these communication issues that we've had, and that moves us ahead quickly. This is hot off the press. So here's my PowerPoint slide. I only got it this morning. Let me try to explain what it says here. First of all, some observations from SOPAC. Transformation is an evolving, phased process with occasional big leaps. So sometimes, woo, but most of the time, it's, you got to keep chugging. Cost savings and cost avoidance are strategic, but they don't completely solve the problems of not having enough budget. So it helps. Our current focus is on implementation and action, not on more study. We're not studying these processes. We want to have some quick wins early. That's essential. So some of the processes are going to be complicated and take a lot of planning to implement. Others are like, do it, write the contract, turn it on. So we're must happen throughout these processes. At all levels, up, down, sideways, whatever. We've got to keep everybody informed, and we've got to look out for the gotchas and the surprises, you know? We've got a great implementation plan, we're moving forward. We're not asking for input as to whether we should do it or not, but if you're seeing what's going on, you go, do you realize the building's going to burn down if you do that? Hello? We want to hear that. Okay? So this means responsibility for everybody here. This is you paying attention as an individual and not just showing up and walking along with whatever happens. So it's really important when you get these announcements of here's the latest thing. Read it. Take personal ownership of it. Say, what impact does this have on what I know about? Can I contribute something useful to help this along? Not interested in kvetching. Interested in, can I contribute something useful that will make it better, that will help us get to success? Speaking of what I said about organization, we really want to leverage the existing members of the all-campus groups as well as other groups, and we want to go for local expertise, but always thinking in a system-wide benefit. So we want to bring more people into the process because we've got a lot of talent that's not being used, and we want to maximize that. We want to continuously assess, revise, and adjust this whole implementation framework. So, SOPAC's working on all this. This is, let's call this the rough draft of where we are, and I think they're very near closure on it. It's going to work like this. So, SOPAC, that's one person from each campus as well as a LAUC representative with a great effort. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but as we appoint SOPAC members, we pay great attention to the expertise brought to the table. We don't need 12 people. It's 10 campuses, CDL, and LAUC. We don't need 12 people who are experts in collections in the room. We need collections, we need tech services, we need administration, we need HR, we need systems. So we're always looking for how can we get the very best people, but also, oh, somebody retired, who are we going to put in behind them? So it's not accidental who's appointed to SOPAC. Within SOPAC, they're going to create something called an NGTS management team. Now the NGTS management team is going to have 5, maybe 6 people on it, and the membership is going to include 2 or 3 SOPAC members, the past chair of the NGTS steering committee, a project manager, and a communications manager. So are you guys tracking that? It's really intended to be inside SOPAC, even though there are these 3 new people who are not in SOPAC. Who are those 3 new people? Well, one of them actually has a name attached, past chair, NGTS steering committee. That's Martha Rusko. Nobody knows better than her all the details of NGTS and is better prepared to try to coordinate all this. And then we're still working on the project manager lead role and the communications lead role. So they're going to be the central management group. They're going to provide overall project management for NGTS implementation. Now, make sure I don't make up stuff. I'm real bad about making up stuff if I don't know the details, so let me check the facts here. Then they're going to have some power of 3 groups. Power of 3 POT, that's their shorthand for it. If you know anything about organizational work and management and so forth, there's actually something very powerful that happens when you have 3 people in an organizational and leadership role. Not 7, but 3. And they're going to capitalize on that. The power of 3 groups are going to be responsible for implementing specific groups of the high and the medium priority recommendations. There will be at least one SOPAC member who serves as what they're calling as a pot sponsor, and then 2 other members from ACGs. So one person from SOPAC, 2 other people from And they're going to be in charge of the different clusters. So just to give you an example here, POT number 2 is responsible for recommendation E5, E6, and their other memberships outside SOPAC will be from class. Okay, who knows what's on E5? Actually, that's not fair. It's a big, long, complicated list, but the point being, oh, and that one is perfectly obvious. Here's another one, POT 1, that deals with recommendations from the new modes groups.
Shelf-ready. E5.
Thank you. We're going to do it. Good job. POT 1 is going to get its membership from Digital Library Services Task Force 2, which includes LTAG and CTL. So I'm just giving you an example. I've got a whole table here of all these different possibilities. There's going to be all these POT groups. Those 3 people are going to be charged with making it happen, deal with the overall project management, coordinating with all the SOPAC and so forth, dealing with the communication stuff. And then, then there's going to be something called lightning bolt teams. Lightning bolt. They're going to get very specific tasks, an instruction from the POT that says, go do this, short-term turnarounds, and it'll be whoever's appropriate, whether it's a mix representing all campuses, whether it's got a geographic aspect to it, whether it's a specific or whatever. So in a unreadable, too small image, your SOPAC, the NGTS management team is inside SOPAC, and there are all the little pots, and then they have lightning teams. That's how we're going to do it. And we've parsed all of their, so they're in the process of parsing who's going to do what. The assignments are going to start coming. You will be notified of what your role is. I think I'll stop there.
No comment. The timeline for all of this is got a beginning and a perceived end, correct? I mean, we have an end game in mind for some of these activities. And like you say, it's coming around the corner. As we're talking, meeting all these pots and lightning bolt teams are probably being formulated. But I envision this being parallel with your priorities initiative in the next couple of years.
They're not separate. They're the same
They're
thing.
in
This just happens to be specifically focused on the GTS. So if you go back and look at the priorities document, you'll see that all the new GTS is already in there. That's the whole point. Priorities are the high level. This is where the focus of the UC Libraries Collective is going. Oh, that translates to E5, E6, and E1. So you can go back and find that if you actually look at it. But it also incorporates the work that CDC is doing with the UC Library Collection. There's some overlap and some separateness. The same thing with NGM.
So the important thing to take away from this is that this is all going to happen rapidly, and we're going to see dramatic change in how we do things in the next couple of years. So I think at this point, thank you for your presentation. I'd like to open up the floor to any questions or comments. So everybody can hear, and maybe if you all help me, we can pass the microphone around. We're going to keep track of these first.
So my question is, as part of this ongoing vetting process, which I think we're all pretty clear on, they're not interested in kvetching. Does that include perhaps openness at this point to some suggestions or things related to, as you've done the prioritizing? We had a meeting at UCLA, we had a brown bag where we talked at length about the different priorities, and if we had questions or we had a thought about a good way to possibly approach that and so forth. So are you open to, because we have a very lovely document here that summarizes all that, to receiving this sort of thing as part of the vetting process in addition to whatever else? It's just that we had the opportunity to discuss the prioritizing and just any suggestions we had about what you might consider in doing this, ways to approach it, or just, there were some few concerns, but I don't think they're like, we need to discuss this forever and ever. It's just some clarification about what wording says about where we really are in the process.
Well, there's a couple of answers to that, and you know, I'm glad you guys did that because it means you're attentive to it and care about the outcomes and so forth. I've looked at that document. There are a number of pieces in there that at one level or another question the data point or the decision or doesn't apply here or that sort of stuff. I'm going to speak for myself here, okay, not the vetting process. Thanks, but I'm not terribly interested in that. Why? Because that's going over old ground. That's figuring out, are we going to do this or not? Now, I'll go back to my professional role here. Yeah, of course we care. But SOPAC's in charge. So ideally, we forward that to Diane Bisson, who's chair of SOPAC, and say, we hope you can use this in your planning and so forth. The thing to do, though, to keep in mind is, don't get the cart ahead of the horse. Don't go out and start trying to plan these things or saying, I'm not going to do it, or it doesn't apply here, or we've already done that, or whatever. There's a bigger, holistic kind of thinking going on. And when and where it's really fits into it, then we'll get down to the details and start asking those kinds of questions.
Perhaps a way to look at some of the stuff in that document that had to do with these are things we've addressed at UCLA, and therefore our experiences might be of some value
Sure.
in the work that's going to be done on this. And personally, I was at the meeting and I read the document, and I don't think that questioning some of the language, what it implied, was saying we don't want to do this at all, okay? I was saying, what exactly do you mean when you say this? Do you mean,
Yeah,
is
and
that...
that's what I'm getting at. That's fine to have that. I don't get this right now. That will come as we get along and as the planning groups get underway and they start coming out to you and say, okay, this is what this means. So, it's tricky business because you're interested, you want to go ahead and I challenged you. Did you read these in great detail and so forth? On the other hand, those questions and the details are going to be the responsibility of the planning groups. And so let's give them an opportunity to get formed and actually deal with that. So.
Rhonda and then Judy.
I just would like to know how and when we will have a chance to assist with implementation, particularly since UCLA has had a lot of experience with some of the very high priority tasks listed here. And we would like the opportunity to be part of the process as opposed to kvetching or as opposed to criticizing it. But we have to be given a chance for input, not be told that this is the report when it's too late to make any responses.
Well, I'm going to challenge you on that. So you said two things here that kind of went off this way. I don't think that was your intention, but let me tell you what I heard. We are going to do these things. And if you want to give us reasons why we shouldn't do it, or so forth, talk about that. Talk among
I'm
yourselves.
not asking that because you're clearly not interested in our
That's
opinion
right.
on that
That's right.
subject. What I'm asking
When we
is,
get to implementation, SOPAC's in charge. Their NGTS management team is going to form these various groups. And those groups will be the folks that will be working with you on the implementation process and going to where the expertise is. And there's a major communication process that will be involved here. So I think that will help clear up some of the ambiguity and perhaps the feeling left out. Whatever you might bring to it for looking at it right now.
okay, I'm glad to hear that we will be consulted and have an opportunity for feedback, very valuable feedback, because you've already talked to us about our expertise being needed. Thank you.
But I'm not promising you that on every one of these topics we're going to hold multiple system-wide open forum to discuss these things. We're going to go to the experts. We've got work to do. We're going to roll up our sleeves.
questions about governance of system-wide technical services post-implementation. So you've explained the sort of structure for implementing the recommendations of the teams. Now, the teams, there wasn't a team on governance. There were teams on enterprise-level collection services, on new modes, on financial models. But within the recommendations of all of those teams, there was thinking about, well, down the road, if we expand this activity system-wide, we're going to need to think about governance system-wide. So when you started, you said it might make more sense if you went after G. Lucas's presentation. And when I read the Slasiak interim draft report, then I saw, oh, there is a strong recommendation here for expanding governance within UCOP for system-wide library activities. So my first question, can I get to my, my first question is that what you foresee? And my second question is, with your LAUC hat on now, as a LAUC member, how can LAUC best position itself to continue to perform its advisory role in relation to whatever new governance structure evolves?
First of all, there's a problem in these communication processes where we're trying our hardest to share lots of information with lots of people. And one of the ways we've dealt with the Slasiak Library Planning Task Force, of course, is posting documents in progress. That document has been revised. And it very explicitly says that implementation of these recommendations, this is, did everybody get it? We shifted gears to this Slasiak Library Planning Task Force. I'm not talking NGTS. That the Slasiak outcomes, that at the end of the day, when the report's written, that it will be given to the Council of University Librarians for implementation. So to at some level moves your governance question. At another level, though, the more interesting one actually is: are we going to evolve as we keep working along? Yeah, almost for sure. And we'll continue to do what we do. I mean, that's why we had this major study about the advisory structure. And four of us put a ton of work into that. And we put a lot of time with SOTAG and with the council on figuring out, what works and doesn't work with our governance that we have. And so, yeah, we're very committed to it. Can I tell you what it'll be? I don't know, truth be told. But things should arise naturally. They should reveal themselves to us. Oh, we've changed how we do business here. We should create some other kind of organizational construct in order to make it work well. If you do it right, it's evolutionary. Teal and Sarah have already been through multiple organizational changes at UC Merced, and we're a new, young organization. But their office is still in the same room as in, job titles and responsibilities shift. But we came up with new ways of working because we woke up one day and went, oh, we're not who we were 2 years ago. It's time to do something. So we collectively must do the same thing.
Hey, Bruce. You've talked about NGTS. I think some people might not know what's coming down the pike as well. You might appreciate if you talk a little bit about the shared monographs group and also the shared print in place, because I think those are going to have tremendous influence that are going on outside of NGTS. But really, when those reports, especially the shared print in place, it's going to be a huge report. It's going to have a lot of recommendations, which are also going to be moving forward. You might talk a little bit about the rest.
Well, all of those activities, as well as others, are actually changes came in. Those are factors we've taken into account as examples of the libraries already doing the kind of things we need to do. So, for example, in response to space limitations and budget limitations, while still maintaining absolute responsibility to ensure that our scholars get the information that we need, down the path of, you know what? It's pretty silly to buy 10 copies of the same book. I'm going to buy one, you're going to buy another one, a different title, but not the same copy. And I'll loan you mine and you'll loan me yours. So, and we're going to stop worrying so much about loans, you know? So it's really shifting toward the collective, the UC library collection. And there's governance in there to make it work and so forth. But that's just one example. So those are, in my mind, those are just really solid examples. And they actually serve as a dual example in that we realize, duh, we have to do those. Let's do them. We didn't wait for NGTS to finish. We identified those early in the NGTS process, and the NGTS executive team and the Council of University Librarians said, do it. We just simply took it off the table for further analysis. We said, we have to do this. We're done. So those could have been in the final NGTS report, but we already got the how we're going to do it underway out there. So there's a process issue as well as a way of thinking.
Hi, I'm
Oh, there you
sitting
go.
here. Mickey Burrell from UCLA. And you mentioned NGM. And I guess it's coming to the end of the pilot where people are looking at it to decide what's going to happen. I think there have been comments that I've heard over the last several years when we've been using it. I'm not sure if they've actually penetrated to the level of the Council of University Librarians. But the fact that it is not an adequate substitute for the current OPACs that we have makes us very wary of a possible decision that would make it our only catalog. And there are certain things that show up in our little report and have been, I think, vocalized at other lab meetings and other fora, but I don't know if it's gone to the level where people are really paying attention. And it's bothering me to hear you say, well, you can be vetting stuff, but we really don't, we're not going to pay too much attention to it because the decisions have already been made. And I think that this is a very serious issue if this is our public face to the world. And if it's not as usable as people think it is, then that does not bode well for the university's exposure to the world.
What alternative would you offer? Should we maintain our local catalogs and NGT?
I
Where are you going to get the money?
I would say that there are certain fixes that could be made that have been suggested that have been ignored uniformly.
Well, I need to respond to that because you're basically wrong. You're talking a matter of opinion here. I fully understand, and everything that's been brought up all the way to the highest level, we're aware of the technical details and what's missing and so forth. But your leadership, the Council of University Librarians, is trying to look at the big picture. What gives us the most impact for our effort? Do you have something locally that's incrementally better than what's in the big NGM?
Yes.
Yeah, we probably do. Dead on. Not going to argue with you about that. I'll say, that's a nice feature. I really like that. On the other hand, locally, you can't address the kinds of things that we're addressing in NGM. Sorry, I keep going down this path.
I will give you one example that would make a huge improvement, and that is known item searching. Where if you have a known title, you can get to that easily without having to go through a zillion steps and
Well,
clicks.
let me talk to you about the development process, because my whole career has been on building software. So pay close attention here. Surely, do not be under this illusion. Okay, we say NGM is now not pilot. We are not saying NGM will never change again. We are not saying it will not evolve. We are not saying that we will continue to add to it. We are not saying that it will get better. We're not saying we won't fix things that are wrong. We're just saying, you know what? It's not a pilot anymore. It's the real deal. Let's hang on to it and let's build our other infrastructure around it. So we have got to get out of the mindset of we don't move ahead unless it's perfect. We have to get a big picture in mind here. And you know, I won't argue with you about the specifics. Yeah, they're important. I care about them a lot. On the other hand, when we're looking at the big picture of trying to manage the library, of trying to deal with the budget, of trying to position us to be in a leadership role with our scholars, with our students, to give them what they need to get their work done, we got to go there. We can't stick with stuff that we think is perfect when, quite frankly, I can pick apart your local system like you wouldn't believe, but you like it because you're familiar with it.
No, that's not, you're missing the point, I think, because it's not getting our scholars and students what they need. When they come in to look for a specific item and can't find it.
Can you give me data on that?
Yes.
All the reports we've seen don't back that up. I'm sorry. So
Well, those of us
we're
who
going
are
to
in the front
we're going to have
line.
to disagree here. I take your point, but nonetheless, the University of California Library as a collective system is moving forward.
One of the comments that has been made by LAUC, my name is Rhonda Lawrence, I'm chair of the Los Angeles LAUC division. One of the comments that has been made over and over and over again by members is that when there are statements made in for instance, the NGTS report or the LAUC, they're broad statements that are not backed up with any kind of citations or footnotes about reports or studies made, but yet there's no reference to those reports or studies. And since we are librarians, we really do want to follow up on those broad general statements. Now, there was maybe one footnote in Slasiak, but I really would like the university librarians to step up to the bibliographic citation plate and give us those studies.
Shame on you. You guys are not reading the reports.
Yes, I am. And
May I ask what the footnotes are in the main documents that we send you? Are you not following those links? They're heavily embedded and all the reports have the data in them. Brad, did you send me any reports without data and without citation?
No, I did not.
No.
well, speaking of Brad Eaton, in the interview article, you had what's the journal it appeared in, about the UC system. You talked about it's widely known that, and you made various statements. There were no footnotes or citations to what you are citing. And I think because we are librarians, we do want to support moving forward. But we also would like to see the data that underpins your arguments. And honestly, we're not seeing that data. I'm not questioning whether it exists. I'm just saying, give us some more citations so we can be well read on the subject.
Well,
That's all.
go to the NGTS website and read all the documents. All the data are there. The statement that you're attributing to Brad that he provided in an interview for somebody, those are Brad's opinions. He was being interviewed. Those are not the statements of NGTS.
Right. That is
So let's be clear
the same
about
topic.
SLACIAC is a work in progress, and Gene, I think it's safe to say we've got some pretty heavy data points in there.
And it's still in progress.
And it's still a work in progress. So you've been privy to the draft documents and privy to the analysis. And by the way, even in the draft documents and the analysis, there's pointers to where the data come from. So I think you're out of line with your comments.
May I make one comment? Let's make sure that we take our, that everybody has a chance, that Steve wants to be, has a chance to say what they want to say without having to speak over each other. And we want to keep accurate notes of the assembly. We do have about 10 minutes left, and I would like to give anybody else who hasn't had a chance to ask a question of Bruce an opportunity, and then to make one small comment. The importance of the SOPAG advisory groups and the role that LAUC plays is key. Every campus is represented on every advisory group and at both LAUC and on SOPAG in terms of LAUC representation. So, you know, the groups that are coming up for reappointment, you know, consider those as an active participating role, and those that are carrying on as representatives of these groups. You know, that's your opportunity to shine and take a front and center role and making sure that our voice is heard in that way.
Can I add to that, Michael?
Yes.
So we have these all-campus groups, and we have a LAUC representative on every all-campus group. We have a LAUC representative in SOPAC. Also, every library librarian who is on those groups is a LAUC member. So if you're on one of those groups, you don't take off being a LAUC member. So I think LAUC is probably the most heavily represented part of our organization in all of these advisory structures. So carry your responsibility with you and speak up.
LTAC.
LTAC is an unusual exception due to composition, and that's random as opposed to intentional. I might throw that out as a challenge. So, head scratcher, how come we don't have any librarians working in library technology? What's up with that?
They make more money as a technician.
Okay, so are there any additional comments or questions for Bruce on this? Yes, Ruby and then Joel.
I just want to ask whether we can truly have faith that we are being listened to, because that's the source of my own frustration. Because right from the beginning, when the pilot was started, we as public service librarians started noticing problems, which is to be expected. And we had complaints from faculty, from students trying to use the system. It was the default catalog for a while. Shortly after I started, it became the default catalog. So that if you went to our web page, it was the first option. And faculty would call to their liaison librarians and complain. People would call to the reference desk and complain. But, all of these complaints were passed on to the appropriate body. And I feel as if we haven't been listened to. And I think it's a disservice to the faculty and students, because all this, the entire enterprise, it's really for their work to move forward as painlessly as possible. They are the end users. And when they complain and we don't try to fix the problem, I think it's not to our credit.
First and foremost, we're seeking input in how to fix things. And so all of the things you discover do go up the chain and they get worked on. Now, decisions get made about what can be implemented, what will be implemented in the future, and so forth. But let me throw another question at you. The faculty call and complain. The students call and complain. We have data that show all kinds of little quirky problems for our users. We actually did real studies with end users, and we got overwhelmingly positive response. The data are posted. You guys can go look at it. You were there. We have an implementation team that's done studies. So you're sharing anecdotal stuff, and I'll tell you my take on it. I hate it when I'm out front and somebody complains to me. I hate it when a faculty member collars me. On the other hand, isn't it amazing that we have tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of satisfied users? So I think you need to get hooked up with the data and get away from, I don't like to answer questions when the end user is unhappy. Listen, I know you're trying to manage the time. I think our time would be better served with Jean's message being delivered.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for your candidness and for your willingness to answer all the questions. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I would just like to make a point of pride